And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and this is now our 2024 Major League Rugby preview for the Western Conference Part 1. If you want to see my Eastern Conference preview, that's in the videos below. So we're going to dive into the Western Conference. Now, if you saw the Eastern Conference video, it definitely felt like it was a two-team race between your reigning defending MLR champions, the New England Free Jacks, and the Chicago Hounds, who definitely look like they are up the level for this competition this season. With the Western Conference, I think it's a lot more competitive, but it's a lot more competitive for everybody fighting for second place. And that's because the one team that everyone's going to be chasing, I feel, in the Western Conference, as much as I hate to say it, because I'm an LA boy, so obviously we have competition and rivalry in sports between us, San Francisco, and San Diego. So the San Diego Legion, who were the runner-ups last year in the MLR championship game, I believe are ready to take that next really important step going into the 2024 season. They ended last season 15-1, they defeated Seattle to get into the championship game, and they ended up losing to New York. They were the best team in the league in the regular season with just the one loss. But New England definitely looked really impressive in that championship game that took place at SeatGeek Stadium. But again, I really feel San Diego during the offseason has done a lot of things to really improve the team, which is amazing, which says a lot considering they were the best team last year, and I still think they've improved more so this year. So, obviously going to be playing at the beautiful Snapdragon Stadium once again. Danny Lee is their head coach going into their third season, the former New Zealand player. There are quite a few losses for San Diego. They lost Ryan Matias, who unfortunately retired. Will Hooley, longtime capped Eagle, also retired, though he does have a great podcast show called Rugby Rundown on the Rugby Network, along with Alex Corbisiero, another phenomenal rugby legend. Will Hooley is going to definitely be missed in San Diego because, as the Fly half, he scored 72 points, was the top point scorer on the San Diego team. Very essential. But honestly, I'm not too worried because I think San Diego, like I said, has done a lot to replace Will Hooley. And will definitely, especially one of the names I'm going to come up with, definitely are not going to be lacking in firepower this season. A lot of players decided to go elsewhere, playing abroad. Shiloh Klein went to the Blues in New Zealand. Ben Grant going to the Hurricanes in Australia. Richard Judd goes back to the Hurricanes also. Hurricanes are in New Zealand as well. Richard Judd, a very talented player, scored 7 tries for San Diego. His firepower will be missed. Sama Mololo is playing for the Moana Pacifica, which also plays in the Super Rugby Pacifica Conference. Sean McNulty, Dan Pryor, Matthias Frary, oddly enough, all three of them going over to Miami. And then the biggest loss for them is definitely losing great Nate Osberger going off to Chicago. If you saw the Chicago video, it was a weird way that he went to New York, to NOLA, then to Chicago, making his way over to there. Definitely a surprising loss for San Diego. He was voted the back of the year last year. But let's go over the people that have come now into San Diego. First of all, Danny Christensen, very talented scrum half from the Jackals. They traded Joel Tikisoia for him. Vili Helu, a former Atlanta player, who one of those Atlanta players I'm kind of upset did not make the transition over to LA. He's now in San Diego. Ryan James, former Guillotines, RJ, is now joining the MLR after taking a break, going over to the American Raptors. He's in San Diego. Matai Luta, very talented sevens player, making his way from Chicago over to San Diego. Cyril Kama, another former Guillotines player, making his first appearance since leaving the league, is popping up in San Diego. Hugh Roach comes over from Chicago in a trade for Jason Higgins. Nick Boyer, a very popular player in Houston, coming over at scrum half position. Big get. These next few names I think are huge gets for San Diego. Chris Matina, fullback from Chicago, coming over to San Diego, an impressive player. Greg Peterson, international player from Glasgow, Scotland, playing for the Rugby Premiership Championship team over there. A veteran player. This will be his first time in the United States. He is actually an American-born player, but this will be the first time that he's playing in Major League Rugby. And then the big announcement that San Diego made, and it breaks my heart. Famous legendary rugby player, Australian player, Matt Guiteau, formerly reigning former MLR champions, the LA Guillotines, making his way down to San Diego at the fly half position. I mean, if there's anybody to replace a guy as talented as Will Hooley, Matt Guiteau is that guy. Originally thought retired. He didn't get to play much in the second season for the LA Guillotines, but now is back and looking pretty impressive with the Mohawk. I don't have a picture of him with the Mohawk, but looking game ready for the season to start. And, of course, you have all the usual suspects that are coming back. A very talented Isaac Ross coming back in. Mikey Tails coming back in. Josh Henderson's coming back. Nathan Sylvia. Thomas Aoki, who was a phenomenal player for San Diego. Kind of the breakout player for that team. 9 tries that he scored. Christian Poidevin, Prince Christian Poidevin, formerly of the LA Guillotines, now in San Diego. Marcel Brackey capped Eagles, as well as, of course, the legendary all-black player Mon Nonu, who's also playing as well. So yeah, I mean, despite the losses that San Diego has, I feel they really did great in reloading and re-upgrading, and they are definitely going to be the team to beat in the Western Conference, in my opinion, and a good run at a chance to possibly make it a repeat appearance in the Major League Rugby Shield Championship game. Obviously, of course, we got to focus on the one rival that's going to be standing in their way, the Seattle Seawolves, former two-time MLR champions, the only MLR team to have 2 shields under their belt. They came up just short at the season, finishing second, 12-4. They defeated Houston before playing San Diego in the conference championship game in the Western Conference, and they lost to San Diego. Seattle, it's going to be a little interesting for them. You know, I have them at second in the Western Conference, but more and more I think about it, maybe they might have to slide down to third because they've lost 2 phenomenal and important players. AJ Alatimu, who by all accounts I felt was the player of the year. A phenomenal player for Seattle. 321 points in his career, 4th of all time. And just, he is such a clutch performer for Seattle. I'm really shocked that he's no longer on the team. Now, granted, he was traded to Seattle for Big Joey Taufuete, a Eagle-capped player, phenomenal powerhouse, formerly of the LA Guillotines, came in from Houston on the trade with Seattle. But then also, too, Seattle lost Jordan Chait, who was the backup for AJ Alatimu. I'll go over more of Jordan because he's on the LA team in a trade for Ryan Reese, a very young American player. But Jordan Chait was phenomenal and, to be honest, kind of pushed AJ Alatimu, who, again, is phenomenal. So you had 2 phenomenal fly halves on Seattle, and now both of them gone. Kind of surprising, to be honest, to have both of them gone. Ben Landry, formerly of Seattle, retired, and Cole Zarconi also retired in the game as well. Adrian Carlese moved over to Chicago, which again is another talented fly half. Don't know why he ended up being traded off as well. Ronan Foley, he was the second round pick. He got traded to Dallas for the 2024 second round pick of Dallas, so Seattle picked up some picks for that. And then I don't know what happened to USA Eagle capped Sevens player Martin Iosefo. He unfortunately is not on the roster, and I don't know if he just decided to back away from Major League Rugby for this time around. Players that ended up coming onto Seattle, as I mentioned before, Ryan Reese in the trade with Jordan Chait, Joe Taufuete in the trade for AJ Alatimu. Cara Pryor was just picked up, formerly of the New York Ironworkers. He's a phenomenal player. Olive Khalifi also supposedly came out of retirement. He was announced retired with Utah, but now is on the Seattle roster. Devin Short, formerly of NOLA, was traded over to Seattle, but now when they produce the roster for the 2024 season. Oddly enough, the blonde-haired Devin Short not on the roster. Don't know what happened with him. But the big pickups for Seattle, both from New York and phenomenal players and personality, Chance Wingluski and Pago Haini. If you are a New York fan, if you're a former LA Guiltinis fan, you'll know how great Pago is. When Pago moved over to New York, he and Chance had the Pago Chance show, and it's great. It's great. Those two are phenomenal talent, phenomenal personalities. They will definitely add a little bit of spice to Seattle. But the big get for Seattle, obviously, is Sam Windsor, currently holding the highest point score of all time in Major League Rugby at 553 points. He left New York because now New York is defunct and wound up in Seattle. Now, obviously, him at fly half is a big replacement for AJ and Jordan, but at the same time, if you look at his numbers, Sam's kind of not producing as well as he used to. I mean, you look at 2021, a breakout season for Sam Windsor, 114 points. Then he's been struggling quite a bit with injury playing for New York in 2022. Granted, they won a championship that year, but only 54 points in 2023, only 56. So, I mean, Windsor has kind of been more of a backup role, but, I mean, I don't know if it's enough to replace AJ or Jordan. And then the one that I'm pretty sure they're going to rely on a lot is Mac Mason, the young Australian, coming from Austin on way to Seattle. He was the 3rd overall pick in the 2021 draft, so highly touted, highly respected, but still, it's a big ask to replace two phenomenal players like AJ Alatimu and Jordan Chait. But you know, Sam Windsor is still one of the top performers in Major League Rugby. And Mac Mason does have the potential, so we'll see. A lot of players coming back for Seattle. Peter Malcolm, hooker. Rickard Hadding, another phenomenal player for Seattle who I felt definitely had a career year last year. 203 points, 10th overall all-time point scorer in Major League Rugby. He scored 55 points last season, 11 tries, which was the second most tries. Putting his total record at 39, he has the second most tries, just behind Dylan the Butcher Fawcett at 42. Tavita Lopetti, who was the Rookie of the Year in 2022, is re-signing for the team. And then Ina Fudi, a phenomenal young talent, the only player to score multiple hat tricks in a season. Last season he had 2 games with 2 hat tricks. No player has had more than 1 game of a hat trick in a season in Major League Rugby. His total is 9 overall of his career. And then, of course, you have Connor Mooneyham, the 2020 number 1 draft pick overall. So, Seattle has a strong team coming back again. Just came up short against San Diego. But, man, a lot of question marks about losing phenomenal players like AJ Alatimu and then Jordan Chait. Obviously, again, Sam Windsor is not a bad guy to have on your team. But, again, it makes me kind of wonder if maybe not second for them. Because now you look at a team like Houston, who I'll talk about, in Utah, because they've made a couple of improvements as well. So let's go over Houston first. On this portion of the videos, we're going to be doing just 3 teams, so Houston's the last one for this one. So Houston, 10-6, 53 points, just got beat out by Utah into the playoffs last season. I have them coming up ahead of Utah this year. But again, I feel it will be a battle for that 3rd place between Seattle, between Houston, between Utah, possibly with Dallas and LA thrown into the mix. I'll explain that a little bit. But Houston, Pote Human, former South African player, coming in for his 3rd year in the coaching table. They traded, started with the losses for Houston. They traded Robbie Povey from the Arrows. And they traded him for the 2023 first round pick, 2nd overall in the draft, and they picked up Max Schumacher, UC Berkeley grad, co-captain of the UC Berkeley team. He was also a Rudy Schultz finalist, and if you're not into rugby, college rugby, Rudy Schultz is basically like the Heisman award for the best rugby player in college. Both men and women have a Rudy Schultz. The Rudy Schultz is for the men's, of course, but Max Schumacher was picked up from that trade. Danny Barrett unfortunately retired, a longtime USA Eagles and Sevens player. Of course, they lost Joey Tafuete. He got traded to Seattle. But we'll talk about who they picked up for that. Dylan Smith, a very talented South African player, retired. Nick Boyer went to San Diego, and then Axel Zapata is playing for the South American team Yakar Z. But who did they get? A couple of players from Atlanta. Johan Momsen, Justin Bassam, Tiana Rasmus. Interestingly enough, all three of them went over to Houston. They signed a couple of international players. Sam Hill, 30-year-old, 10-year veteran with the Exeter Chiefs over in the Rugby Championship League in Europe. He has a title with the Exeter Chiefs under his belt. And then a very talented player, South African from France, Nicholas Johannes Masks van Dijk, 44-year-old, and he's played many years, 8 years with Toulouse, which is one of the top French teams in the top league division in France. Another great big veteran, a great international vet to have with Houston. Now, obviously, the biggest get for them is getting AJ Alatimu from Seattle to come over. That's huge because not only do you have AJ Alatimu, but you have David Coetzee, the top scoring player of last year, 129 points, 6 tries under his belt as well. Very dynamic player. To have him as your starter and AJ as your backup, I mean, that is just a cupboard of riches for Houston. And I mean, right now that really makes me wonder if maybe Houston might overleap Seattle in the early standings. And of course, other players that are coming back, Christian Dyer, talented player, winger, 9 tries last season. Oren Bitzer, young player. He was drafted first round, second pick overall. First round pick, 9th pick overall. Gideon Van White comes back, 10 tries under his belt last season. CeCe Mahoney, very talented, capped Eagle. Emmanuel Albert. We're talking about Rudy Schultz Award finalists. Emmanuel Albert won the Rudy Schultz Award in 2021. He was the second overall draft pick, first draft pick for Houston. Jerry Lapsishkandne comes back. Damakina comes back. Carla Denishian comes back. Nathan the Moose Den Hoyt comes back. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they also picked up a guy who hasn't been playing in Major League Rugby for a couple years, Jeremy the Missile Ligulalu, who comes back formerly from the Rugby Atlanta, is now playing for them as winger in Houston. I mean, good lord. Houston is looking actually really good on paper, and maybe better than Seattle. Again, I feel in the Western Conference, it really is going to be San Diego on top. Everybody else is chasing for that second and third place team. And it's going to be a lot more competitive than the Eastern Conference because you have, again, Utah, you have Houston. I believe Dallas will take that next step up. You have Seattle. And then, I mean, maybe LA. Well, I mean, there's reason to feel optimistic. And I'm not just saying that as an LA fan. But there's reason to feel some optimism for LA. But it's going to be a very competitive Western Conference. And right now, San Diego is looking like the cream of the top. But you never know. Playoffs are funny. All you got to do is make the playoffs, and somebody could upset San Diego in the end. So, yeah, that is our Western Conference. I'm really excited for it, obviously. And, yeah, I feel a lot of the Western Conference games are going to be a lot more fun and competitive to watch. Again, not being very disrespectful to Miami or Charlotte in the Eastern Conference, but because you have those two teams in the Eastern Conference is going to feel, to me, going to be a little bit lopsided. But the Western Conference is definitely going to be a lot more competitive overall. So that is the video for part 1 for the Western Conference. Don't forget, because MLR is coming back in less than 2 weeks, we also have Super Brew is back. The Rugby411 Pick'em Super Brew Challenge. Again, absolutely free. Information on how to join is going to be in the description comments below. It's absolutely free to join. You just got to download the Super Brew app. Very easy to use. Absolutely free to join. If you win, if you're the top player to pick all the teams and get the most teams correct during the entire regular season of Major League Rugby 2024, the top player gets a free t-shirt of their favorite Major League Rugby team, courtesy of yours truly. Again, I'm hoping that I do better than last year. Last year was just not a good year for me. But I do hope that everybody joins. We have currently 10 players playing. We had 20 last season, and I do hope to exceed that. So join in. It's going to be a lot of fun. Absolutely free. If you don't even really know too much about Major League Rugby, it's really just simply pick and choose. Nothing else to think about. Maybe point difference. But other than that, nothing more to think about. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, we'll be playing that all season. So, let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think San Diego will make a repeat run in the championship game? I know there's a lot of Seattle fans out there. Do you think Seattle makes that next step to go oversee San Diego? I mean, San Diego and Seattle have a long, ugly rivalry going into playoff games. And I don't know, with AJ and Jordan Chait no longer on the team, it's going to be interesting to see. And then will Houston take that next step up and get their spot in the playoffs? We'll see. So again, as always, thank you very much for watching my videos, and I'll see you on the pitch.